So overall, I would say the students are just really engaged. And yeah, they do get tired if they're with me all the time. So we split it, and they're happy not to be with me. Are there any questions? Oh. Well,
how many kids there are in each classroom?
In middle school, I have like 27 eighth graders. You have 31 first graders.
And what about high school?
We don't teach high school.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry.
Up to 8th grade. Who else would like to? Oh.
We have more presentations, so we're just.
Oh, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions, actually. Do all the different groups practice the same skill?
No, they practice completely different skills. It's kind of what they need to practice.
Okay. Now, do you have the same objective though? You do have the same objective, but the 3 different groups are practicing different skills.
Well, on the computers, they have different objectives. I will say in my class, the rotation, I try to keep the same objective. It makes it easier just for me and the students, because if we have a project, we can all do it together still, like a regular traditional classroom.
Okay. So, for example, we're working with verbs, just language arts. And I have one group in the computer working with reading comprehension, then I have another group doing project-based learning with verbs, and then I have another station which is maybe worksheets with practice books. So I'm thinking how I'm gonna do it in my classroom. So that's more or less how the transition goes.
Yeah, I try to keep like my class, the classroom, the same objective, and the computers are they're independent, self-driven, maybe not exactly tied in.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. Okay. What kind of programs do you use for language arts, for example, websites?
Well, we have more to our slides, and I'll talk about that a lot. You'll be sick of it.
All right. How do you label each group? Like, for like the higher level, I mean, do they know that they are the higher, the lower levels know that they are the lower levels?
Right. Well, we have 2 different strategies. I label my group by the novel they're reading.
Okay.
So I have To Kill a Mockingbird right now, and The Help. So they're reading different novels, and that's how I do it. I don't particularly like labeling, and so the different kids move from different groups, so you might not be in the same group. So that's why I label you by your novel name. I think it's...
And how do you assess that? And what kind of, how do you assess that? How do you assess that? And how do you grade them? Do you have like 3 different grades?
I do.
You know, systems?
I have 3 different group grades, and then some whole class. So when I'm putting it on my grade book, I'm like, To Kill a Mockingbird, project, blah, blah, blah. So it is 3 different, and they can see which group they're in.
I have other questions, but I'll
okay, and Shelley's going to talk about her groups.
All right, thank you.
The groupings that I use, I don't call them high, medium, low. I'll explain it in one of the slides, but they're animal groups. So there's horses, there's monkeys, and there are lions. And you can see how I facilitate that with a board and little Post-it notes. Are there any other questions about student satisfaction?
Okay, one of the slides you presented says that it's a no-stress environment, but yet there are 20 minutes per each rotation. What happens with the students who do not complete a certain number of exercises on the computer within those 20 minutes? I'm sure they talk, so they know how many did he do, and did he finish that one?
That's a good question. They actually don't... My students don't talk about how many they have wrong or anything. All the programs that we've had, and I'm sure they'll be the same for you, they actually, the next time they come on the computer, they pick up pretty much where they left off. So there's no pressure for them to feel like they have to get through this exercise. They pick up right where they left off, so it really is a stress-free, no-pressure environment, and it does work at their own level, at their own pace.
And I also think that they would talk about that as much as they would talk about grades. What grade did you get on this? So mostly it's about, I think, the blended learning culture is not about competitiveness. Mm-hmm. So it's more about support for each other. So they'll explain more of that.
And I would just emphasize too with that, when you think of in a period of time, if you put like a worksheet with 10 questions in front of the kids and you have this 20 minutes to finish this, it's very easy for kids to compare, and you're kind of inviting comparison because they all have the same thing and it's right there in front of them. But with the online curriculum, they don't necessarily have the same thing. They're at different places, even though they're at different places. And as Shelley said, that they're working at their own pace. So when they pick up where they left off. So very quickly into the school year, when they sit down and start at the beginning of the day, they're working on different things or on different problems. Maybe the same topic, the same skills, but the problems are not exactly the same. So it doesn't invite that kind of comparison so much.
Anybody else? Okay. I'm gonna lose 3 pounds today. Yes.
Okay, I'm Maria Fernandez, Maria Jose. I have a third grade. When you finish the school year, the student should have some skills third graders must be accomplished. If each student is working at his own pace, relax and all those things, how I can be sure they're gonna be prepared to next year. And the other question I have is, you continue educating for upper graders, and are they gonna be, if the program is very good, they are gonna work at his own pace, is relaxed, is really an utopia, but how they're gonna be prepared to enter the university and be prepared to study medicine, law, business, where that environment is going to be relaxed, where they have to have the skills to be prepared for those majors. There are going to be other students that will go to other types of universities, but how can I accomplish that they can go to upper graders?
Well, we're going to talk more about it further in our presentation, but just really fast, I always tell the kids I teach like 8th grade curriculum and above. So when I say they're working at their own pace, I have students working at 8th grade level and up to like 11th and 12th grade. So that's what I mean at their own pace. They're learning the grade level curriculum and beyond. So we're not going lower necessarily. Online, I might, for struggling readers, a little bit, but not much. But in my class, it's at grade level. And that's what I always tell them.
And then in my class, when I say working at their level, that really is on the computers that they work at their level. You can see in the video when they're working with me and when they're working in another group, it really is first grade curriculum and above. So my highest group, they're getting, even though I'm the first grade teacher, they're getting second and third grade material. My middle group is getting first and second grade material. That's what they're working at. In my lowest group, they're still getting first grade material. I just have to scaffold it so they get the material.
In your experience, do the lower, that you have identified like the lower group, right? The lower level group.
The Lions.
Okay. So you have identified that group. Do they usually achieve their skills or master their skills by the end of the school year for the next grade level?
Yeah.
I mean, that lower kids, they do?
Yeah, they do. And you'll see, we'll share some data throughout the week, and you will see how my class started in the fall and where they ended in the spring. And you'll see from the data that I share how the kids have moved up with that. The other thing about being maybe in the lower group, it does not mean that you're always in the lower group. Okay. They move around. I'll show you how I use Post-it notes, so I'm not committed to the groups, but they can be moved around.
Okay, and we have a traditional grading system. My question is now, how do you merge those three different groups by the end of the school year, for example, to get a traditional grade, like an A, a B, a C? So how do you put all of that together and assess individual kids to have one grade?
Right. So for me, being a lower grade student, my students have a separate technology grade. And I use the computers and the growth that they make as a technology grade. And then they also have some assessments that they take on the computer that coincides with what I'm teaching. And I will give a regular assessment that we're all used to, and then I'll combine it with the assessment that they take on the computer, and they'll get a mixed grade that way.
We're going to have another session of Q&A after Mariloli's question, so they can continue with the presentation.
Good morning. Did some of the kids by the end of the year will be behind what you expect them to be? What will happen with those kids in terms of the promotion? Or they will be promoted to the next level, and in the next level they will be provided with material for filling the gaps or the need they have?
So you want to answer, but can I just say something real quick? And then you can. So I'll let them comment on that and what their perspective on their class. But I do want to say that we're not here to tell you that blended learning is going to solve all the problems with being, teaching kids. Things like that question you asked, it's such a great question. It's something that we struggle with. Obviously, you do too, all the time. That question and that issue is not going to go away with blended learning. You still have to do that. So, but I think they can comment. But we do have to address that. And in a way, you address it in the same way that you do. But I do think that blended learning just gives you more tools to work with the kids. So in some ways, it just makes addressing that question easier. But that tension about, giving them what they need, but also keeping them up to where they should be, that tension doesn't go away. But I think that this... Yeah.
Okay?
Got it. Yep. And it does, but I'll let them kind of talk about, as classroom teachers, kind of how they feel that it does help them in their classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
There are kids that still, by the time the year ends, they are performing at a lower level than other students, and we still have to move them on. They are much further ahead than they were before, and for the most part, my kids are at end of the year first grade or going into second grade when they reach second grade. But for those students who are struggle, we still do have to make interventions for them. And you can do that on the computer. You can do that in small group. We have a reading resource specialist that pulls those kids out, and we've identified those kids, and we help those kids any way we can so that they can be successful for the following year. But you will still have those students who struggle. Yeah. We have students who come to kindergarten not knowing how to write their name. We have students coming to kindergarten that know how to add. So you have those students. Mm-hmm.
They won't be up with the same background that the other ones, and you have to address those differences too.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess she's wondering how does the computers help on that? If you get a student, I mean, instead of having him or her from kindergarten and he comes into the school in the 4th grade, how do you help with the computers to get that with the whole program with blended learning, which is what she means? How does he or she get help to get to that level if he was far behind?
I think Jay answered. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a combination of the non-computer-based things, but on the computer, for example, we have reading programs that will provide reading materials at a child's kind of lexile level. So you have things like that, and so you have a lot of resources built into the programs that you use that can level set the curriculum that the students get. So if you have a student who is lower, a lot lower, the online curriculum can provide you with materials that are at an appropriate level for that student. So go ahead.
And the online curriculum really does, for me, with this problem, actually help me more than if I were to do it on my own. Because for that one student who is that far behind, I can access things that are below grade level for that student. And they are receiving that background knowledge, that scaffolding, all those missing pieces that you really don't have time to do. That can be implemented with the computer program, and then you can still have that child pulled out for the smaller reading group and everything. But though the computers, for me, especially with that problem, is a huge help in this department because it can help you reach that kid at their level and bring them up to where you need them to be. So for that situation, make the computers help you.